Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christian Burris, and I am the co-chair of the ZSR Library Lecture Series, and I'd like to welcome each of you to today's presentation. And it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Christian Miller. And Dr. Miller didn't want me to say too much about all of his accomplishments, but there are some things that definitely need to be said, so I'm going to make a few things known to you today. Dr. Miller is an associate professor of philosophy here at Wake Forest University, where his main areas of research are meta-ethics, moral psychology, action theory, and the philosophy of religion. His work has appeared in such journals as Philosophical Studies and Philosophical Psychology. He was awarded both the 2009 Wake Forest University Reed Doyle Prize for the Excellence in Teaching and the 2009 Wake Forest University Award for Excellence in Research, which is the first time ever that a faculty member at Wake Forest has ever won both prizes in the same year. He's the author of two books, Moral Character and Empirical Theory, which was published in 2013, and Character and Moral Psychology, published in 2014. He is past president of the North Carolina Philosophical Society. He writes a blog on character and psychology today, and he was awarded 2 grants on the existence and nature of character, the first which led to the Character Project, which ran from 2010 to 2013, and currently the Developing Character Project from 2013 to 2015. So without further ado, Dr. Miller.
Is this working? Okay. Wow, well, that was a very kind introduction. Thank you so much, Christian. Good afternoon, everyone. Whoa, is that a little loud? A little too loud? Good afternoon, everyone. My students, come on, my students at least. You should be well trained. You're supposed to say something in response. Good afternoon. Okay, there we go. Good. So, really appreciate your coming out here on Wednesday afternoon, late in the day. Is this thing working right? Okay? You can hear me, probably without it anyway. So thank you so much for coming out. I hope this will be interesting and entertaining. We'll have some fun talking about this. I don't want to just lecture, though, for the next hour. So at any point where something's unclear, just raise your hand. I'm happy to clarify it. I'm going to ask for you to respond at a couple points, and then we're going to have some good Q&A at the end, too. So please save your devastating objections and show why the last 3 years of my research is all flawed. Save it until the end. Don't get me off track in the middle. But here we go. So I want to talk about a specific aspect of my research on character as it pertains to honesty, dishonesty, cheating, and the like. If you happen to have general interest in character research going on in psychology, philosophy, theology, you're curious about what the latest discoveries have been, I encourage you to go to this website, www.thecharacterproject.com, where we've summarized a lot of the things we've been doing and provide a whole bunch of resources for the further study of character. So please come on by and see what we're doing. But for today, I'm going to be much more focused, talk about honesty and dishonesty, and even that's way too broad to try and cover in one little lecture. So I'm going to not talk about lying. I'm not going to talk about stealing. I'm just going to focus on honesty and dishonesty as they pertain to cheating. And here's going to be the overall roadmap. Look at some data from psychology on cheating behavior and then on cheating motivation, before drawing some implications about the possession of the virtue of honesty and the vice of dishonesty with respect to cheating, and then finally outline briefly a new picture of character, which I think better captures what most of us are actually like. So that's where I hope to get to today if time allows. Can you see on the sides? You good? Can you see? Okay, excellent. Then here we go. So part 1 here, cheating and behavior. So, of course, I'm a philosopher. I want to start by defining my terms and being really clear about what I mean. So, for our purposes, I'm going to mean by cheating behavior which intentionally breaks the relevant rules in a situation in order to gain an advantage using deceit or fraud. So, if you plagiarize on your paper here at Wake Forest, which no one ever does, but hopefully, well, maybe sometimes, then that would count as cheating behavior. If you have an affair in a marriage, that would count as cheating behavior. In fact, I put down some examples, and they have one thing in common. They all tend to involve mostly cheating behavior that involves affairs and marriage. A couple of pictures, too. Can't believe you did that, Bill. I can't believe I got caught. And most of you who are older than me don't have a clue who those people are. Most of you are younger than me. You can educate the rest of us about who those are. But you know if you do know who those people are, you know why I put them on the screen too. So good examples of cheating behavior. Here at Wake Forest, at least most people in this room who are younger than me are not married. So a more relevant topic maybe is cheating that has to do with academic work. I'll give you a couple of studies here before I really get into the heart of the psychological research. Just to warm us up, 3 recent studies reported that the average cheating rate of students while in college was. How many people think it's over 50% of students in college report cheating at some time during their 4 years? People say it's over 50%. How many people say it's under 50%? Okay, you're way too optimistic. Most of you. 70% according to one study. 86% according to a second study, and 60% according to a third study. Here are the references if you want. I can send them to you later if you want. These are very recent studies, and look how high the average cheating rate is in those studies. Here's another study I like to cite, not because of anything about Croatia. I really don't know why I mention it, other than it's just so powerful that I always like to put up on the slide. Getting exam questions from someone who already has taken the test. Does that count as cheating behavior? Clearly, yes. You think the majority of students in Croatia would do that kind of thing? 94% admitted to doing this, but only 5% considered it serious cheating. Wow. Or copying from another student during a test or exam with his or her knowledge. That's pretty blatant academic cheating. During the test, you're copying from someone else, and the person knows it. Majority of students, would they admit to doing that? 90% admitted to doing it. Only 4% considered it serious cheating. Now, I don't know if that's something special about Croatia. I've never been there, but I tend to think it's probably not. I tend to think that cheating is widespread throughout the world, and maybe it's not as high as these numbers represent in America, 94% and 9%, but it's awfully high in America as well. So these are some quick studies to look at. What I'm much more interested in are controlled studies in psychological laboratory contexts. I want to see, can we manipulate the environment in certain ways to see what influences people's cheating, encourages them to cheat, and what discourages them to cheat. So I want to give you real quickly 2 studies. There are hundreds of them that I could cite and go through, but we don't have all day. So I'm going to give you a quick taste of some influential studies here. One by Ed Diener, very influential psychologist in the last 50 years. It's an early study by him. And here's the setup. Participants are taking a test. So these are students who are signed up for this study. And one at a time, they come into this room, and they're taking this test. And the experimenter who's in charge of this test says he has to leave for 10 minutes. And it sets a timer bell for 5 minutes with a warning to remember not to go any further after the bell rings. The experimenter leaves. Here's this participant taking the test and working hard on the test. After 5 minutes, the bell goes off. Okay? So the question for you is, what percentage of the participants stopped taking the test, and what percentage of the participants continued going after the bell had rung? So how many of you say that the majority of participants cheated, in a sense of violated the instructions from the experimenter? Well, now, of course, you're going to say that because I've already kind of primed you to think it's pretty bad, right? So if I had given you this as the first study, you might have said something different, but now I've kind of already set you up to expect some dismal results. And there you go. Okay. Now, you might think, well, in this case, they were just, most of them were just finishing the current problem they were working on. So they went over 5 minutes, but just barely, because they were just like writing down the final sentence or just finishing the problem. Well, in fact, that wasn't the case. The people who went over tended to go way over, significantly over 5 minutes. How did they know that they went over? Well, they had a 2-way mirror watching them, right? So yes, the experimenter left the room, but could observe through a two-way mirror what was really going on and saw this behavior. Actually, this is just the control group. There's going to be another group of participants, which we'll come back to later, which are even cooler. The results are even cooler. Maybe the participants aren't cool, but the results are pretty cool in the second group, which I'll get to later. But first, another study, a very recent study by Lisa Shue and her colleagues. And this is going to use a setup that's become widespread in looking at cheating behavior. So I'll introduce it, and you'll see I'll use it again, and many, many studies today use it. So first, each participant is told you're going to have to complete a worksheet with 20 problems. That's your task. And furthermore, you would be paid 50 cents for each correct answer you get. So for a maximum of $10. Now, we're going to have different groups here. There's going to be a control condition where participants knew that the experimenter checked the answers and oversaw payment. So in this, if you're in this group, you're going to take the test, you're going to write your answers down, then you're going to present them to the experimenter. The experimenter is going to check your answers, see, yes, this is right, no, this is incorrect, and then pay you accordingly. So there's no opportunity to cheat here. You just have to take the test, do your best, submit it, and you get paid accordingly. However, there's also a shredder condition. Kind of interesting name. Why is it called the shredder condition? Because here, participants knew ahead of time, essentially, that they could cheat and get away with it. That there was no risk that they would be detected, their cheating would be detected if they chose to cheat. Why? Because they knew that their answers would not be checked, their worksheets would be shredded, and their payment would be based entirely on what they told the experimenter with no questions asked. So if you wanted to say, I got one problem correct, you could say that. If you want to say, I got 10 problems correct, you could say it. If you want to say, I got 20 problems correct, you could say that. No questions asked, and these participants knew this ahead of time. There was no question about that. Okay, got the setup? Is it clear? Do you think there was a disparity in the total number of correct problems between these two groups? Well, again, I've already kind of primed you for this. You kind of know what's coming. How much of a disparity is really the question. We know there's going to be a disparity. The real question is, how big of a disparity? Well, no opportunity to cheat in the control condition. The group average was 8 problems answered correctly out of 20. Okay, so that kind of sets the baseline. So we know, human nature, we're going to expect that the shredder condition is going to be, there are going to be more. How much more? How many people think it's going to be over 10 problems? Over 15? Oh, okay, you're really not giving much credit to these participants. You really think they're pretty bad character going on here. A lot of dishonest people. Okay, well, here's the actual results. 13.22. Now, that should puzzle you in some ways. And if not, you don't see the puzzle yet, so I'll come back to it later. But here's the actual result. 13.22. So look, almost double. Now, is it because the participants in the second group were so much smarter? It could be, right? I mean, that's possible. We got to grant that possibility. But is that very likely? Is that really the most likely explanation for why there's a big disparity? No, the much more likely explanation is that they took advantage of this opportunity to cheat, and they said they got a lot more problems correct than they really did. Okay, clear so far? Some studies to warm us up, to help think about cheating and behavior. Now I want to go a little bit deeper. So I want to go behind the behavior and probe the motivation. What is going on in people's minds psychologically when they cheat? Well, that's a big question. We'll maybe just get a few insights here today. I can't give you a complete story. We don't have a complete story yet, but here are a few insights we can learn from these experiments. Well, here's one interesting thing, is that psychologically, a lot of these participants know that what they're doing is wrong. It's not that they believe that this is okay. Oh yeah, cheating, well, no big deal, this is fine. Morality allows it. It's like morality doesn't care about this. No, they do believe it's wrong, and yet there's some kind of breakdown. What evidence is there to think that they believe it's wrong? Well, here's a study to back that claim up. Here's the claim. Most people do have beliefs to the effect that cheating, at least in most forms, is morally wrong. And when those beliefs are activated or made salient, they often curb or prevent cheating behavior. So that's pretty commendable. I mean, the beliefs seem to be there. I haven't given you any evidence for that yet, but just trust me for the moment. The beliefs seem to be there, and yet there seems to be also a disconnect in the behavior. Why I think the beliefs are there. Here's another study. using the same kind of setup I already introduced to you before. No opportunity to cheat. The control condition, in this case, they had some differences in the problems, so it was they were harder problems, so it took longer to complete them. So out of 20, this group got 3.1 correct answers. In the shredding condition in this group, 4.2 correct answers. So another increase, like we saw before. But this study is interesting because it had a third group. And in the third group, they were told, before you take this test, we want you to first remember as many of the 10 Commandments as you can. Okay? Now, do you think that made a difference? Well, of course, again, I primed you to think it's made a difference, because otherwise I wouldn't be telling you about this. If it did make a difference, what would be the point of telling you? It made a significant difference. When they were first primed to recall the 10 Commandments, and then otherwise same opportunity to cheat, the average was the lowest of the three groups. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have any explanation. It may just be that this is a statistically insignificant difference, and that would be my suspicion. The 2.8, 3.1 is really insignificant. But maybe there's some deeper story to be told there. I don't know. It's a good question. So notice this. Making the moral beliefs salient seems to have curbed the cheating behavior. And so it looks like the beliefs are there, and when you make them salient, that makes a big difference. And this effect actually also manifests itself not using the 10 Commandments, but just using other moral reminders. So people don't have to be religious, doesn't have to be a religious example at all. You give people moral reminders about what a good person is or what moral principles are, and then their cheating goes way down. So the beliefs seem to be there. Another support for this claim has to do with the honor code. This is, I really wanted to mention this. It's very interesting in general to think about how you want to curb cheating at universities. It's also very interesting to think about here at Wake Forest, given the Wake Forest honor code. Look, evidence, very strong evidence that signing honor code is correlated with reduced rates of cheating. Give you yet another study here. Mazer, same setup, 50 cents per correct answers, control condition, shredder condition, and now the third group, they signed their university's honor code first, and then were given an opportunity to cheat. What do you think happened? 3.4 or 6.1? Well, I've already. Okay, 2.8. Yes, that's right. That's the correct answer. You're close. You actually, yeah, as close as 3.4. So 3.1. So this is a good example of why it doesn't have to necessarily be a religious reminder for the 10 Commandments. It could be a reminder like an honor code to curb cheating behavior. Now notice also something interesting about this study. What if we amp up the reward? It's not 50 cents, maybe seeing that so it's trivial to not even bother here. What if we make it $2? Well, that's getting a little bit more interesting. I mean, $2, 20 problems, you can make $40 really quickly in this very quick, in 30 minutes doing the study. Well, not so fast. Control condition, 3.2. Shredder condition, that should surprise you a little bit, right? You would think in the shredder condition we have an opportunity to cheat, at least it would be higher than 6.1, but actually it's lower when you can get more money off of cheating. And now we bring in the honor code, and the honor code was effective in curbing cheating, even though there was more to be gained from cheating. Interesting here too, I think. So this is all by way of saying moral beliefs seem to be there, and when they're made salient, they can have an important impact on behavior. So a natural story to tell at this point is, when we are in a cheating relevant situation, like the ones in these experiments, most of us typically have moral beliefs opposed to cheating, and at the same time, so here was the good side, hey, that's the good news. We got the moral beliefs. Boo, here's the bad side. And we also have a desire to cheat for various egoistic reasons. We want to gain an advantage, we want to get money, we want to avoid failure, embarrassment, we want to just have fun, whatever the case might be, we want to boost our resume. We got some kind of desire or set of desires to cheat alongside of our moral beliefs. Okay? So that's a very straightforward story. So if you think it's more beneficial to cheat instead of doing the moral right thing, then often there will be greater motivation to cheat. If it's worth it to you, you're going to get the payoff by cheating that you want that outweighs your desire to do the more the right thing, you're often going to cheat. Okay? Now, I could just stop there and say that's a good story, but I think it's too neat and too simple and too nice of a story to tell. And one reason why this is a troubling story to me and an insufficient, unsatisfactory story is that I'm puzzled by this pattern in the data. Okay, so notice in this thing about the studies I've given you already. When there was an opportunity to cheat in this study, 13.22 problems answered correctly was the group average. And in this study, 4.2 problems answered correctly was the group average. What's puzzling about that? Maybe multiple things. Well, what's one thing that's puzzling? Yeah, exactly. That's what puzzled me, right? I mean, they knew when they went into this setup, they knew they could cheat as much as they wanted and were guaranteed to not get caught and also knew that they were going to get paid for each right answer. So why wouldn't you cheat to the maximum extent possible, right? If you're going to cheat at all, why wouldn't you go all the way? You see the puzzle? I mean, why would you? This is a group average, so it's not. Yeah. But suppose someone stopped. You said, "I got 13 problems correct." Why would you say that? Why would you say, "I got 20 problems correct"? Especially if I can get paid $2 per correct answer, I could get $40 instead of getting $26. That's strange. In fact, here's a little bit more powerful evidence. Across 6 experiments and 791 participants, only 5 went the maximum amount. That's striking. To me, at least. Maybe not to you. Yes? Excuse me. I have to apologize. I've been a little under the weather. So I'm going to cough a little bit. It could be, except that they knew that they should have known. Maybe they didn't believe the instructions they were told. But if they genuinely believed the instructions they were told, they should have known that there was no chance of them getting detected. So you're right in general. In ordinary life, you worry about whether you're going to get caught when you're thinking about cheating. And so one reason to not cheat is because you fear the consequence of getting caught. But in these studies, that was eliminated. Maybe they didn't really believe the instructions, but they should have. And then they... Good. That's where I go. That's the kind of story I think is the most plausible. So to get us there, I think we agree here. So to back up that story a little bit more, we come back to the Diener study I gave you at the very beginning. Remember, for control participants, 71% went over 5 minutes. And then I alluded to this other group. I didn't tell you anything about them, and I just said they were cool and interesting. And now you can hear more about them. Because there was a second group of participants, and here's the only difference in their environment. They were seated directly in front of the two-way mirror and thus saw themselves whenever they glanced up. Okay? So the first group, they were just sitting at a table working on the test, and there was a wall around them, and there was no mirror for them to look at. Second group here now, they're sitting there working on the test, and if they looked up, they would see themselves in a mirror. Okay? That's the only difference. Got it? Think it's going to make a difference? Well, again, of course, I primed you to think it's going to make a difference. Otherwise, I wouldn't say it. How much of a difference? You ready? This is the most dramatic result of the day. Isn't that stunning? Yeah. Yep. By themselves. It was just one after another. Yep. And this is the cumulative result here. Look at 71% versus 7%, and the only difference is the placement of the mirror in the room that allowed them to see themselves in the mirror when they looked up. So what is going on there? And your suggestion is the one I think is the plausible one. So it's not just that most people have a desire to cheat when the benefits of complying with the relevant moral norms against cheating are outweighed by the costs. It is that they have such a desire to cheat while also desiring as much as possible to still appear to be moral or honest both to others and to themselves. In other words, we want to cheat, but we also want to think of ourselves as honest people. Okay, so you said in terms of respect, self-respect, thinking of yourself as a good person, and in this case, specifically thinking of yourself as an honest person. Okay, so if you cheat the maximum amount, how easy is it of you to think of yourself as an honest person? Not very easy, right? But if you cheat just a little bit, maybe you just rationalize it a little bit. So think about what we've seen here. I'll come back to that in a second. The mirror. How does the mirror come into play? Well, when you look at yourself in the mirror, is it so easy to look at yourself in the mirror and say you're an honest person and then turn around and cheat? Or cheat and then look at yourself and say you're an honest person? Not so easy, right? When you look at yourself in the mirror, that reminds you of the kind of person you want to become. And then if you want to be an honest person and then you turn around and cheat, that's very hard to do. Recalling the Ten Commandments. When you recall the Ten Commandments, that makes salient in your mind. It recalls to your mind how important it is to be an honest person and how you want to be an honest person. And that's very salient, and it's going to be very hard to turn around and cheat. And then signing the honor code, same thing. These things, what they do is they activate in our minds our desire to be an honest person. We want to think of ourselves, more precisely, that we want to think of ourselves as honest people. It doesn't matter to us just that others think of us as honest. We want to think of ourselves as honest in our own minds as well. Now, this is where self-deception comes into play. So if we can deceive ourselves into not comparing this act of cheating with our moral norms, then the threat to self-concept is diminished. So if we can just kind of pretend, or conveniently forget for the moment that this is wrong, then we'll cheat. We can just kind of block it out of our minds or deceive ourselves or nicely, subconsciously repress our moral norms. Then we'll likely do it to some extent because there's not that conflict. But if the self-concept is made very salient to us, if we're reminded very visibly that we want to be honest people, that we're trying to be honest people, it's going to be very hard to then turn around and cheat as well. Clarification, or are you going to give me trouble? Yeah. The answer, as far as I know, there are no studies currently being done or that have been done using the mirror in the setup with the control group, shredder group, and so forth. So I can't help give you anything there.
Well, as far as the
yeah.
performing students after they prompted or signed, following the Ten Commandments or signing an honor code, is there something ethically wrong about prompting them though? Because they're going to score not as well as they would have without it.
So you're thinking something like this?
Yeah, it's pretty low.
So 3.0 versus the control condition where it's 3.2. And then so it's lower here too. So is there anything ethically wrong with prompting them or priming them with an honor code ahead of time? Doesn't seem like it to me. In fact, it seems like it's a policy we should recommend. Right? The more the honor code is implemented at universities, the better. Since there are going to be opportunities to cheat on tests. And if signing the honor code is an effective way to curb that cheating, then it's something that I think we should promote. Now I see what you're saying. Yes. I got you. You're worried that somehow the honor code actually makes them do worse on the test because of the drop from 3.4 to 3.1. Yeah. Now that's an intriguing thought. And here I would my first reaction is what you anticipated I would say, which is that there's just not a statistically significant difference here. This is just noise. This is mere noise. To really tease that apart, that we need a lot more subjects run through these experiments to get a better sense of that.
But take the suppose that's true. We can show that there is a
Yeah.
correlation between pointing out honor code and diminishing of the actual performance.
Yeah, not just a correlation, but a causal relationship. Mere correlation, but when yeah, but an actual causal relation. Yeah. Then would that raise ethical concerns because maybe you wouldn't want to have the honor code in that case because it's diminishing people's performance? That's a very interesting question. And if you knew that going in, would it be morally wrong for you to administer the honor code?
Yeah, like by priming them with morals, you're actually doing something immoral because you're causing them to score not
Yeah. Interesting question. Maybe we can take that up at the end of Q&A. We have to make it hypothetical at this point because I don't think we have the data to support it. But hypothetically, I don't know what to say about that. Yeah, you stumped me. Yeah, that's very, very good. Okay, let's wrap this up. And how am I doing? Okay. May have to go a little bit quicker through some of the rest of this. So we've got the solution. More complicated, more motivational story. And now we come to the big question for me. In light of this research, what should we say about people's character? In particular, do we have good reason for thinking that most people are honest when it comes to cheating? Well, I could just ask you right now. Do those studies look like they have results which are compatible with saying people are honest? No, right? I mean, the Shredder condition, twice as many problems solved as in the control condition. That doesn't look like it's compatible with honesty. I'll give you some arguments, though. I'll go through just a couple of these and skip some. So one way to do this more systematically is to try and come up with actual principles to decide whether someone is honest or not, or tests or criteria. And here's one. A person who is honest will regularly refrain from cheating in situations where he's a free and willing participant, and the relevant rules are fair and appropriate, even if by cheating he's assured of acquiring some benefit for himself. That's one component of honesty. Well, did the studies support that kind of picture? No, right? Here's another principle. A person who is honest will not allow his honest behavior in cheating to be dependent on the presence of certain variables, such as whether his moral beliefs concerning the wrongness of cheating are salient or not, especially when important moral matters are at stake. In other words, I would have thought an honest person would not cheat when reminded of the Ten Commandments, right? But also not cheat even without the reminder. In other words, an honest person wouldn't need the reminder in the first place to refrain from cheating. Or an honest person would not need to sign the honor code in the first place to refrain from cheating. It wouldn't have any real impact on an honest person. An honest person would refrain from cheating regardless of whether he or she signed the honor code or was reminded of the Ten Commandments. And yet, it turns out in these studies, those things made a big difference. They strongly impacted cheating behavior. Our behavior does seem to be quite sensitive to these kind of factors. And so that's the second argument. Third one, person's trait of honesty will typically lead him to refrain from cheating primarily for motivating reasons which are morally admirable, deserving of moral praise, not primarily for motivating reasons which are either morally problematic or morally neutral. In other words, I would expect an honest person to not cheat for good reasons. Would this reason count as a good reason for an honest person? Because I might get caught. Is that a good reason? No. No, definitely not. Or because I might get punished. Or because I might get embarrassed. Or because I might feel guilty afterwards. That's why I'm not going to cheat. Those are not legitimate, morally admirable reasons for an honest person. And yet, they are very influential reasons in many people's minds, including my own, and the studies bring that out as well. And I didn't give you many studies pertaining to this, but I think if you know the literature, you wouldn't be surprised what I'm going to say here. A person who is honest will typically attempt to prevent the cheating from happening again and be disappointed in himself for cheating in the first place, rather than using self-deception or rationalization to avoid having to confront his cheating. So, someone in the Shredder condition who cheats. Imagine someone who does that. Imagine it's yourself. And then a month later, you have an opportunity to do it again. What do you expect people to do when they have an opportunity to do it again? Think they're going to cheat again? Or you think they're going to say, no, I feel so terrible about last time when I was in this experiment that I'm definitely not going to cheat this time. I'm going to say I got 3 questions correct. You think it's going to happen the second time? Come on, what do you think? So I didn't give you, as I said, much data to back this up, but it turns out that most people in the studies in question are such that they don't seem to feel very guilty afterwards, and they would likely do it again if given the opportunity. So what's the big conclusion for me? Here. Are most people honest when it comes to cheating? What do I say? No. 4 different reasons. There are other reasons I could give to conclude that most people are not honest. Now, that may be not so surprising. You may be saying, well, I wasn't thinking that in the first place. What I do think is that most people are dishonest. And then when I hear these studies about people going over the timer and people cheating in the shredder condition, that just reaffirms to me how I think most people are pretty dishonest. Well, here's my harder arguments to pull off. I don't think this is true either. This is quite surprising. A lot of people disagree with me about this, but I'll try and give you 3 quick arguments why you might believe my position. A dishonest person, I think, when acting in character, would not genuinely commit himself to behaving honestly prior to a situation where he can cheat in a way that is completely undetectable and do so for financial or other gain. Let me let that sink in for a second. In other words, a dishonest person would not commit himself to the honor code. Why would a dishonest person do that? Why would a dishonest person genuinely sign the honor code and then stop cheating? Would you expect that? Would you expect a dishonest person to sign an honor code and stop cheating? No. But it happens in the studies, right? That's what happened. In one study, only 1 out of 22 participants cheated in a condition where they had to sign an honor code. Only 1 out of 22. Most did not. Doesn't seem very dishonest to me. A dishonest person would try to maximize the benefits from cheating when he could cheat in a way that's completely undetectable and it's beneficial overall to him. Wouldn't you expect that? I mean, if you have a genuinely dishonest person, wouldn't the dishonest person try to maximize the benefits of cheating? Wouldn't that dishonest person try to get $40 or $20, depending on how much was being paid for each correct answer? But remember, 13.22 problems were answered correctly as a group average when there was an opportunity to cheat. Not 20. And finally, a dishonest person might desire that others think he is honest, but he would not be strongly committed to thinking of himself as honest. Now, you see why the first part's true, right? A dishonest person might desire that others think he's honest. That makes sense, right? If you're a dishonest person, it's in your benefit to have others think of you as honest. It makes it easier to be dishonest, right? If others, what's that? Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect illustration. Best con men succeed by making other people think that he or she's honest, even though deep down they're dishonest. But why would a con man think of himself as honest? That sounds strange to me. The one thing that you want others to think of you as honest is another thing to say, I want to think of myself as honest. Remember, we said that most people have a desire to cheat while also desiring as much as possible to still appear to be moral and honest both to others and to themselves. In other words, if you believe my motivational story, you then would believe that most of us deep down really do want to appear to be moral to ourselves. And that's not what a dishonest person is like. So to wrap all this up, and you can certainly challenge me on all this, it seems to me that only a few people today might have the virtue of honesty, but it also seems to me only a few people today might have the vice of dishonesty. So, big question remains then. What are most people like in this area of our lives? If we're not honest and we're not dishonest, what's really going on deep down? Okay. Quick side note. How many of you have studied Aristotle? Most of you. Aristotle would agree with me here. And Aristotle would agree with me here as well on H1 and H2. This is not so radical a view as might seem. In fact, the most influential proponent of character, the most influential philosopher ever to write on character, holds the exact same position. So in the remaining minutes, let me tell you what I think is really going on. In my research over the past few years, I've come to think this, not just about honesty, but about character in general. Most people today do not have any traditional virtues. So that applies to honesty, applies to compassion, applies to courage. Any traditional virtue you can think of, most people don't have it. I bet you didn't think you would become this depressed from my talk. Sorry to break the bad news. Good. I can't really weigh in on that because I'm using psychological research to arrive at that conclusion, and we just don't have the psychological research 500 years ago or 5,000 years ago. If you want me to just do armchair speculation, I would speculate that it's always been that way. But that would just be pure armchair speculation. I can't back that up with hard data. But now here's the good news. Now first you were depressed. Now you should be encouraged a little bit, because I also say most people today do not have any traditional vices either. So we're not scum. We're not rotten people. We're not wretched. But we're also not saints either. So if this is correct, and I haven't given you much evidence to believe it in general, but if you go along with this, a big question becomes, well, what is really going on then as far as character is concerned? Because I do think it's also true that we have morally relevant character traits. They're just not virtues and they're not vices. How could this be? Isn't this just contradictory? Isn't it? Am I confused? Am I just illogical here? I say we have character, but I say it's not virtuous and it's not vicious. And let's skip that one. In a real quick minute or two, I'll try and outline how I think about this. I think we have not virtues, not vices, but what I call mixed traits, such as a mixed cheating trait, a mixed helping trait, mixed harming trait, and so forth. And why are they mixed? Why I say they're mixed, I say they've got some good qualities and they've got some bad qualities. So they're morally positive in some respects, and they're morally negative in other respects. The morally positive ones disqualify them from being vices, and the morally negative ones disqualify them from being virtues. Okay, they were a mixed bag. You can think about it that way. So if you want a slogan, from my view, our characters are a mixed bag. Now, wouldn't it be great if I could give you some examples? Like, here's a character trait that's a mixed character trait. Or here's a character trait. Can I give you some ordinary examples to make this more concrete? And I can't. This is really frustrating for me. It makes it so much harder to present my view because I can't give you any ordinary examples. We don't have any ordinary terms and concepts to use to refer to them. They've not been captured in our ordinary thinking. So someone help me out here. What would be an example from science where we think something has existed and continues to exist, but we only recently came up with a term for it? Only in recent years have we come up with a term to label something that's existed for many, many years. Someone help me out. Yeah, if you want to a particular planet, Pluto, well, I guess it's not a planet, or Mars, whatever, a particular planet. You want to give me another one? Atoms, well, because the ancient Greeks had the concept of an atom. But take that one step farther. So proton. So have protons existed for millions of years? Yes. Have we had a concept and a term to pick them out for millions of years? No. Only recently did we come up with a label for them to describe something that has existed for millions of years. If you want another example, DNA. Right. Another example you could think of is quarks. So a number of these examples. Now, I'm saying the same thing is going on here with character. I'm saying that we have character traits as part of our mind. They're real. They exist. They've existed for a long time, going back to the beginning of human civilization, yet we've missed them in our ordinary thinking. We've not come up with terms to refer to them. We don't have easy labels. So I had to invent a label to make it a lot easier for me to talk about them. Let me try and make it more concrete, though. Forget the labels for a moment. What is this mixed trait? What does it actually consist of? How does it work? Well, let's go back to cheating. I'll use cheating to help us get this more concrete. This mixed cheating trait is composed of a lot of messy stuff, like this. Beliefs and desires concerned with not cheating in order to avoid getting caught, punished, and so forth. Do we have those beliefs and desires? Yes. But do we also have beliefs and desires concerned with achieving various goals or forms of enjoyment by cheating? We have those too? You be honest with yourself. Everyone in this room has them, including yourself. Look inside of yourself. You got them there? Yep. Desire, concerned with not cheating when the benefits of cheating do not significantly outweigh the costs. You got that desire too? We all got it. And if I'm right about this last part, desire is concerned with cheating when the benefits of cheating outweigh the costs, while also desiring as much as possible to still be thought of as an honest person by ourselves and others. That's there too. It's all there in us. It's all a complicated mess in our characters. Is this a rosy picture? Is this a bleak picture? Well, isn't some of this good? I mean, it's good that we don't want to cheat, right? That's a good thing. And we don't want to cheat here. That's pretty good. But is it an entirely positive story? Well, is this so good? Is that a good thing? Not so good, right? So hence, it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed character. We have a mixed character when it comes to cheating. We've got some good things going on. We've got some not so good things. You can put the whole package together, and it comes out neither virtuous nor vicious, but rather a mixed bag. Hence, my view. If you want to see this as far as what it would look like in behavior, well, take a person, imaginary person, Smith, 4 situations. Well, in one of these situations, he's going to cheat a lot, often. In another situation, he's never going to cheat. Character is a mixed bag. If this were the shredder condition, he's likely going to be up there. If this were the honor code condition, he's likely going to be down there. Right? And not just Smith, but all of us. Our cheating behavior is going to fluctuate dramatically. Some situations, all of us, is going to be true that if we sign an honor code, it would be 0. And if the same people, it's also true that if we were in the shredder condition, no honor code, it would likely be 100%. It's just a mixed bag. So I'll leave you with one implication and I'll wrap it up. So if my view is correct, and I haven't said much about it, but if it is, we have many beliefs about the virtues of our friends, families, members, and leaders in society, but our beliefs are often mistaken. We have to radically change how we think about the character of other people. Think about the person who you think is honest in your life, your friend who you think is honest. Well, if my view is correct, I'm sorry to say, your friend's probably not honest. Think about the politician who you think that's a scummy politician, very dishonest. We can all think of easy examples, right? I'm not going to get in trouble, but we can easily think of examples. Well, your belief there is also likely false too. That person is likely not dishonest either. That person likely has a mixed character, just like your friend has a mixed character. Your friend is probably not honest. That politician is probably not dishonest. If these people are like most people, they're probably just a mixed bag of good and bad. So, lots more to be said here about what character traits consist of. These mixed traits are consist of. What are they influenced by? Do they come in degrees? Yes. Are they stable over time? Yes. Are they consistent across relevant situations? That's a complicated question, but I can answer it if you want. Do they function subconsciously as well as consciously? Yes. How can we miss them? It's a big question. Well, how am I so smart that I'm the only one who figured it out and everyone else missed it for thousands of years? No, that can't be right. So how do we miss them and have made such serious mistakes? That's a big question. What implications do they have for ethical theory and moral education? What practical implications do they have for Wake Forest? For you as teachers who are giving tests, for you if you're teaching Library 100 or something like that, if you're giving a test, what implications could that have? For you as students, you're seeing cheating going on in your classroom, you know about cheating going on in the dorm rooms, what implications does that have? Lots of interesting questions here. And I tried to get into some of this in the 2 books that Christian nicely mentioned in his introduction. So for now, I'm just going to wrap it up. Say thank you to Christian for organizing this and to everyone else who was a part of this. And I'd love to hear your questions.